Good evening, everyone. My name is Jennifer Matthews. I am a member of the Economic Development Committee of the North Arundel County Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. I am pleased and honored to welcome you here tonight for our workshop on strengthening your mindset and developing achievable 2021 goals. I want to welcome you. I'm excited. We have quite a few people on the line tonight. And at this point, on behalf of the president of our chapter, Dr. Sean Ashworth, and our committee chair, Dr. Chandra Parks, I welcome you, welcome you, welcome you. Please take notes. We have a phenomenal panel discussion set up for you here tonight. And at this point, I'm going to turn it over to our moderator for the evening, Ms. Michelle Fuller, and turn it over to her.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Michelle Fuller. I'm actually co-monitoring, but thank you very much. I'm a member of the committee. We have a really exciting evening for you. I think it's going to be, we're going to have a very robust conversation. But what is traditional to our committee is that we always start with a financial fitness minute or two with our member Marlene. And she's going to give us just a few tidbits of nuggets of information about financial fitness, and then we're going to start the discussion.
This is more like physical fitness, but today's tip is a tip that everyone can use. I know sometimes people say, oh, I already eat healthy or already exercise, but this one is for everyone. And it's about wearing your mask safely. We know that we're going to be wearing our mask for at least 100 more days, maybe even longer than that. And lately, because of that, our masks have become a part of our fashion statement. We have them all designs, all colors, all styles. I'm going to give 5 tips today on that are important about your mask. The first one is if you buy a cloth mask, the fashionable kind, you need to wash it before you use it. It usually says that on the package, but if not, you need to do that. Number 2, after you're ready to use your mask, you need to wash your hands before you put it on. And then don't touch it anymore until you take it off. And I know that's difficult because I'm always scratching here or adjusting, but you shouldn't do that, especially if you're out shopping. Number 3, your mask needs to fit snugly. It should not have gaps on the side here or above your nose or under your chin. It must fit snugly in order to accomplish what it's supposed to do. Number 4, if you wear a disposable mask like these, make sure that you're wearing the blue side out. I'm sure everybody knows that, but I have seen people with the white side out. If you're wearing a cloth mask, and those are the fashionable kind, be very careful now because it's important. I was fortunate enough to find some cloth masks that actually has a pocket on the inside where you can put a filter. You need to have a non-woven filter in your mask in order for it to be of any value. And most of the fashionable masks that they make now don't have that. So you can make your own filters. Like I have the pocket inside my mask. I use a coffee filter. I wet it, make it soft. Then when it dries, I cut a square out that fits inside my mask pocket, and I have a non-woven filter. Non-woven filters can be made out of coffee filters, paper towels, even toilet paper, but that's too soft for me. You can use multi-layers of fabric, but if they're all woven, you're gonna have to have so many layers, you probably won't be able to breathe. And the last tip is to, if you're wearing the disposable masks, you're supposed to throw them away every time you wear them. That gets really expensive. So I have washed them, to be honest with you. I've washed mine. But what I usually do in the car is I have a 80% alcohol spray. And after I come out of a store or something, I spray it with that and lay it on the dashboard where the sun in your car gets over 100 degrees. So it kills the germs. If you're wearing your cloth mask, you need to wash it every night. because not only do you have the germs on the outside of it, but you have the germs from that you're putting in there, your saliva, your mucus, the bacteria from your mouth, and oils from your skin. So you need to wash those every night. That's my health tip, because health is wealth. Thank you.
Thanks, Marlene. I appreciate it. So we're going to get started, and this is actually the third in a series of financial workshops that we started in September and leading up to our big conference, virtual conference in March that we hope you all will participate in. Of the ones that we've done so far, I think this is probably going to be one of the most robust discussions that we'll have. We're going to be talking about strengthening your mindset and developing achievable 2020 goals. But that mindset piece is so important. And you oftentimes, when we have financial workshops, you don't always hear people talk about your mindset and how you determine your decisions and how the things that you decide to do when you're young can impact you when you're older. So we're really going to spend some time unpacking that, and I'm really excited about that. But first, I want to tell you about our panelists. We have two very dynamic panelists. And in the interest of time, what I'm going to do is I'm going to share with you, if I can get my screen to drop. Let's see. There we go. While I'm reading the bios of our panelists, I want you to just take a look at some of these key financial and demographic metrics. And because this is really going to set the tone for our discussion a bit, okay? So take a look at that. And I'll tell you about our first panelist and speaker is Dr. Cislena Ledbetter. She's a PhD and a social psychologist, researcher, lecturer, and life coach. She received a bachelor's degree in psychology from North Carolina Central University, magna cum laude. She earned with honors her master's and doctoral degrees in psychology from one of the best universities in the world, Howard University, my alma mater. Her postgraduate studies include educational leadership training at Georgetown University, Graduate School of Professional Studies, and from Harvard University Graduate School of Education. She has received several fellowships and internships, including an intern during the Clinton administration. Dr. Ledbetter has held higher education leadership roles, including assistant professor of psychology, director of counseling and student development, and associate vice president of student development, where within 4 years, she wrote and attracted more than $5 million in grant funds for behavioral health. She is currently executive director of counseling, health, and wellness at Western Washington University. Dr. Ledbetter has written and attracted millions of dollars in behavioral health grants to build peer-led programs addressing HIV/AIDS, substance abuse, suicide prevention, and domestic violence. Her research interest includes exploring wellness, power, and politics for women of color in leadership roles in the workplace, exploring factors that enhance healthy intimate relationships in the Black community. She was host of the DC cable television program, A Healthy Mind, where she interviewed guests on topics related to mental health. Welcome, Dr. Cislena. Our next panelist and speaker is James Henson Jr. James is Regional Vice President with Primerica, Inc. and owner of Henson and Associates. He specializes in financial planning, insurance planning, and financial education. He believes financial education with implementation is key to shifting one's financial future. James holds a BS in computer science from Bowie State University. He also holds a Series 6 and 26 licenses. So welcome. So tonight, we're going to really center our discussion on 3 topics in particular. The first one is the concept of future self, which is a really interesting concept. I had never heard of it. Dr. Cislena educated us about that. And it's really such a key concept when you think about your mindset. So we're actually going to spend a little more time on that topic than some of the other ones because it really is that important. The next one we're going to talk about is saving me from myself. And our committee lead, Chandra, is going to facilitate that discussion. And then the last topic will be save consciously and live wisely. So as we get started, we're going to actually start with a video, a portion of a TED Talk that is really interesting because it really gives you sort of a background and understanding of what that future self concept is all about. It's about a 3-minute video. Bear with us and please pay attention. I think you'll find it very interesting. So now let me get in here and pull this up. All right.
With Hal Hirschfield, who was introduced to me by my co-author on the previous project, Bill Sharp. And what it is an exploration into virtual reality. So what we do is we take pictures of people, in this case college-age people, and we use software to age them and show these people what they'll look like when they're 60, 70, 80 years old. And we try to test whether actually assisting your imagination by looking at the face of your future self can change your investment behavior. So this is one of our experiments. Here we see the face of the young subject on the left. He's given a control that allows him to adjust his savings rate. As he moves his savings rate down, it means that he's saving 0 when it's all the way here at the left. You can see his current annual income, this is the percentage of his paycheck that he can take home today, is quite high, 91%, but his retirement income is quite low. He's going to retire on 44% of what he earned while he was working. If he saves the maximum legal amount, his retirement income goes up, but he's unhappy because now he has less money on the left-hand side to spend today. Other conditions show people the future self, and from the future self's point of view, everything is in reverse. If you save very little, the future self is unhappy, living on 44% of the income, whereas if the present self saves a lot, the future self is delighted, where the income is up close near 100%. To bring this to a wider audience, I've been working with HAL and Allianz to create something we call the behavioral time machine, in which you not only get to see yourself in the future, but you get to see anticipated emotional reactions to different levels of retirement wealth. So for instance, here is somebody using the tool, and just watch the facial expressions as they move the slider. The younger face gets happier and happier, saving nothing. The older face is miserable, and slowly, slowly, we're bringing it up to a moderate savings rate, and then it's a high savings rate. The younger face is getting unhappy. The older face is quite pleased with the decision. Okay? We're going to see if this has an effect on what people do. And what's nice about it is it's not something that's biasing people, actually, because as one face smiles, the other face frowns. It's not telling you which way to put the slider. It's just reminding you that you are connected to and legally tied to this future self. It's your decisions today are going to determine its well-being, and that's something that's easy to forget. This use of virtual reality is not just good for making people look older. There are programs you can get to see how people might look if they smoke, if they get too much exposure to the sun, if they gain weight, and so on. And what's good is, unlike in the experiments that Hal and myself ran with Russ Smith, you don't have to program these by yourself in order to see the virtual reality. There are applications you can get on smartphones for just a few dollars that do the same thing. But this is actually a picture of Hal, my co-author. You might recognize him from the previous demos. And just for kicks, we ran his picture through the balding, aging, and weight gain software to see how he was.
Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. So we're going to start out talking a little bit about this whole concept of future self. And on the TED Talk, you got a little bit of a peek into what that means, right? I'm going to give you the definition, and then we're going to engage our speakers. And I want to start with Cislina, because this is, like I said, is a concept that she actually introduced us to, and I really want her to unpack it a bit. But the definition of it is the psychological research on the future self examines the processes and consequences associated with thinking about oneself in the future. The extent to which people feel psychologically connected, i.e. similarity, closeness, to their future self influences how well they treat their future self. So with that said, Cislina, could you just unpack that a little bit for us and just kind of give us a little bit more context around that?
Thank you so much, Michelle. I appreciate that. And thank you for reading that definition. And before I get started, I want to really just give big ups to Marlene for starting with that health tip, because there's no health without physical health, right?
Mhm.
If you're not feeling well, then you can't participate in financial wealth building. It's really difficult. So I really appreciate you starting with that. When we talk about, my area is wellness, so I really appreciate how you focused on that. That when we talk about the wellness wheel, all of those aspects are super critical. Well, in terms of the concept of the future self, it's so important to think about the research that has been done. And essentially what it means is it's hard for us to see the future, right? Like, we love living for now. How many of you have parents that are like, you only live once? We need to live for today. And so all of these sort of ways of thinking and ways of being are really ingrained in us from really, really early. And so when we think about the future self, there's research that's been done at Berkeley and Stanford, and all of this research simply says that when you're like 18 to 24, you're college age, you can kind of think about, you can see yourself in your late 20s. They asked them, well, can you see yourself in your 30s? How can you do, what do you see in your 30s? And actually folks will say, I can see myself in my 30s. I can see that far. By the time you start asking, students in the 18 to 24-year-old range, can you see yourself in your 40s? They start to it wanes a bit. They cannot see themselves as in their 40s, 50s, 60s. By the time they get to 70 years old, most 20-somethings have zero concept of what it means. And so that is why it's so super important to be talking about this today, and to be thinking about what types of strategies can you put in place to preserve your future self. So Daniel Goldstein talks about this all the time and has made a living talking about the future self and saving for the future. And there are many strategies, and I don't know whether I'm going to sort of pivot and share some of this space with James Henson on this, but the idea is that in order to preserve your future self, you have to start now. And because it is really difficult, I mean, the science says it's really hard to imagine what you're going to be like in your 60s, in your 70s, in your 80s, and quite frankly, in your 90s, and even past 100. Because honestly, the more we learn about the science of well-being and the science of living, we're living longer. And so you don't want to outlive your money. And in order to not do that, we have to start thinking about how we're going to live and how we're going to save. We only showed about 3.5 minutes of that, but if we had shown you a clip about 2 or 3 minutes earlier, and we didn't show the whole 15 minutes, but hopefully you'll go back and Google this video and watch the whole 15 minutes. There were videos, there were clips of the kinds of housing that you might be able to afford if you are making $2,000 a month versus $10,000 a month. And they broke it down. And these are real numbers. These are real paychecks. Are you just going, in fact, Social Security Administration is only guaranteeing solvency through 2035. They won't necessarily tell you that, but all of the research that I did at AARP says that you must participate in your 403B, 401k, max out if you're independent, and James can probably speak to this, your private independent retirement plans in order to save and to build wealth for your future. And so I'm going to pause there because I could go on.
Can I say something really quickly? Because
I do too, Michelle. I want to say something too.
okay, the only thing that I wanted to do really quickly was to just kind of draw us back a little bit to some of those statistics that we showed in the beginning. Because while it sounds like he's talking about sort of the general population, when you think about people of color and how we are already behind the 8 ball, most of that is due to systemic racism. You know, we know that in education and jobs and so forth. However, with that said, there are some things that we can do within our own sphere of influence.
That's right.
To address it. You know, there's systemic racism as a whole. It's very difficult to address that individually. But once we get our paycheck, which oftentimes might be less than our white counterparts, then that's where we have to make some decisions about what we do with that, because nobody controls the check when you get it. So I just wanted to kind of loop back some of those statistics and just sort of integrate that a little bit into the dialogue, because we are not starting from an even playing field, but there are things that we can do to make a difference with what we have. And so I'll turn that over to you, Jennifer.
And on a similar note, and Cislina and James, both of you can speak on this. When Cislina, you just mentioned outliving your money down the road, but right now, a lot of people are outliving their money based upon their day-to-day spending habits, and it's not on necessities. So I don't know if you want to touch on that or if James wants to touch on that, but we're outliving our money today when we don't have to.
Right. Right. I think what you're referring to is having more month than money, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Having more month than money,
Mhm.
right?
Uh-huh.
When we don't have, when we essentially spend whatever is in the account
Mhm.
until it hits zero, and to some of us it hits negative.
Mhm.
And so I think that I'm going to pause there and give you some airtime, James, because this is certainly, in my estimation, really an I'm going to say an epidemic in the Black community, and really speaks to not feeling like we've had.
Mhm.
I am also a daughter of an immigrant who had his own business, who was able to impart in me the importance of being able to have something. So I grew up with save for a rainy day, and it's always going to rain. It's not if, but when. And so I'm going to pass the torch to you, James, so that you can talk about the more month than money, because I think you
Awesome.
can. Mhm.
I appreciate it, Cislina, and thank you to the Sorors and Delta Sigma Theta, Sorority Incorporated. I appreciate you all for allowing me to share on your platform today, impart wisdom. That's one of the things that I'm very, very passionate about, and it is very true what you were talking about when you talk about your future self. We talk about more month than money. The thing is that there's 3 reasons why people fail when it comes to their finances. One, we don't get the financial education like we were talking about. We're not taught about personal finance. The second is we don't have a financial plan. And the third is we don't have a money coach, someone holding us accountable to what we said we wanted to do. Because see, everything in life comes with instructions except for money, except for the paycheck. So what we do is we do what we see our parents do, which was, pay our bills and have fun and all this type of stuff. So that's our introduction of money, what our parents did. And then outside of that, now you have the outside influences of what you see on TV or what other people may have. And so
Mhm.
you start to spend on things that, like you said, you're spending on things that you really can't afford, right? Things that you just want and really don't need. And so we find ourselves spending way more money than what we have, living way above our means because of, like, I think someone was just saying, I think you were saying, Cislina, about having things, like, but we want to have things to look good for other people. So we go out and we get the big house and we drive the luxury automobiles and all these type things. And so what I find, I sit in households, well now via Zoom, but sit with people all the time, and I find out that credit is one of the things that hurts us, because as long as you got good credit, they'll give you anything, right? And so it'll
Sure
look
will.
good, but what happens is we find ourselves literally being a slave to the lender for the rest of our lives, because we've
Mhm.
never put together a plan. And it's
Mhm.
like we have this money, and it's like, well, I have it, so I want to spend it. Like when you talk about the concept of future self, that was so key, because so many people don't want to save for the future. They're like, I have it now, I want to spend it now. When I
Mhm.
sit down with most people, they'll say, well, I don't want you to tell me that I can't spend money. And my thing is, I'm not telling you that you can't spend money. I'm just telling you how to plan your spending. You know what I mean? And so it's big when we look at the mindset of individuals. Just like you said about the slogan of "you only live once." People, YOLO and all that type of stuff. And I tell especially young people, because they coin that phrase and stuff like that, YOLO. But that's not true. You only die once. You live every single day. So
Mhm.
you shouldn't spend your money like you're gonna, what I'm saying, die tomorrow. It's like, oh, you only live once. No, I'm gonna live, and like you said, statistics are showing people are living longer, right, and outliving their money. They're literally outliving their money. That was a huge factor of Social Security. That is something that Social Security is not going to say, but I tell people all the time, you cannot plan for Social Security, because the baby boomers are eating that money up. They're eating that money, and there's not enough people that are contributing to the because you have a lot more younger people that are entrepreneurs now and things of that nature, where they're not contributing to Social Security and things of that nature. So it's really about getting a plan, getting educated, right, and then implementing a plan, because like I was telling Michelle, knowledge is not power. Knowledge, what I'm saying, applied knowledge is power. So,
Mhm.
Gaining all this knowledge, but never applying the things that you learn when it comes to your money, it does you no good. We can sit here and talk about the stock market. We can talk about investing, but until you get in the stock market, you're not, what I'm saying, you're not winning. You know what I mean? I'm just being honest. If you're not investing in some form of fashion where you're outpacing inflation, you're losing the money game. So,
So James, let me
yes.
ask you something, because a lot of times I hear, people, and especially our folks, will say, I never learned about money, just kind of like what you said, that
Hmm.
you mentioned that, your first introduction to money is always typically your parents. And you
Hmm.
said you follow what they did. So we don't oftentimes see in our community examples other than, we do oftentimes see people driving nice cars and maybe having big houses or whatever. Um, but we don't really talk about money a lot. And so you've given some really great examples of things that we should be thinking about. But how does one get started?
Okay.
We have, what I hear a lot is, I don't know where to start. I
Hmm.
don't know what to do. Um, and it's an interesting concept, only because what I struggle with, I'm just going to be very honest, what I struggle with sometimes is, oftentimes we have degrees and we're working in areas of business or in whatever arena we're working in, and our parents may not have done that, right? But we figured out, this is what I want to be, an engineer, and I'm going to go to school and I'm going to learn how to be an engineer. But when it comes to our money, we can't figure it out, or we can't figure out how to educate ourselves, yet we could with that. So could you give us some guidance around what are just some simple things that people can do to start? I agree, you definitely need to have a plan,
Right.
but how do people get to the point of getting a plan?
Okay.
And what are some things that average people can do to just start to educate themselves, and also to take some steps to move towards shifting this paradigm that we're discussing?
Gotcha. So the first thing that I would say is, just like you were talking about how we go and we get degrees and things of that nature, it's the
Mhm.
same thing as far as educating ourselves. And it's not having the pride. You gotta put your pride on the back shelf. We, especially, African American Black people, we're big on pride, and we one of the biggest things, we think we're okay. Like literally, I thought I was okay until I witnessed that layoff. And I was a government contractor. I worked for the CIA, was making great income as a system engineer, but I never thought that I would, be laid off. You understand what I'm saying? So when it happened, it was like my eyes were open. And so when we look at 2020, most people don't think that their job is ever going to end. Like, it's like this check is coming in all the time. So you have to educate yourself first to say, okay, well, I've got to seek some help. I've got to open up a book. I've got to make some phone calls. We have to seek, you know what I mean? The Bible says, seek and you find, you know what I mean?
That's right.
You know what I mean? And so, the thing is, it's the same exact thing when it comes to our money. We can't be so prideful that we don't want to ask for help.
That's right.
When I go in households with people, the first thing and they say, they'll say, where have you been all my life? Like, how did you learn this information? I said, well, I said, literally, it was because I witnessed the layoff, and the person that introduced me to finance was actually one of my business partners. And so it wasn't until I pretty much got uncomfortable, right, and I always call it a dashboard moment, when the blinders came off. And so but because we feel as though we have this money coming in and all this, we think we're okay. So the first thing I would say is seek the help. Open up a book, you know what I'm saying? Start to educate yourself, just like we do on, right now we have a plethora of information. Like, I mean, it's not like it was back in the day where stuff,
Right.
I mean, literally everything that I mean, from investing to learning about the stock market, learning about debt, learning, all the things that you need, it's out there. You know what I'm saying? One of the things that I tell people really is when you're ready to move forward, don't let your mind talk you out of it. You know what I mean? Like, you're not the only one going through it. You know what I mean? If you look at statistics, 8 in 10 people live paycheck to paycheck. Like, that's 8 in 10 people, and that's global statistics. I mean, it might even be higher when we talk about that for a second. It might be 9 out of 10. But the thing is that understand that you have to seek out the wisdom. You know what I mean? Pick up a book, just like we sought out the degrees. Do the same thing with your finances, and then once you get that education, seek out some, like the same person. Like with me, like I tell people, I educate and implement. So when you sit down with me, I'm gonna sit down. I'm gonna educate you. I'm gonna ask some questions. Where do you want to go? What are your goals? And I put together an analysis. It's called a financial needs analysis, and it's a roadmap. It shows you where you are now and where you want to be in the future and what you need to do to get there. So that's one of the main things is basically just get out of the mindset of I'm okay and
Right.
start to seek the help. You know what I mean? That's the biggest thing I can say is get out of that mindset. And
I read that LeBron James, when he first started playing basketball and was making all this money, that he used to meet with Warren Buffett to learn about investing, even though he had the money, right? But he didn't know what to do with it. And I don't know if he still does, but I was reading that he was meeting with him every once or twice a year to make sure that he was staying on top of his financial acumen. So what you're suggesting is really the same thing. What about saving? And I know we're going to get into that in another area, but what about, yes?
And we do have a question.
Okay. What's the question?
The question is, and it does relate to savings, but is it better to save your money or pay off debt and lower your savings?
Can I chime in before we move to savings?
Sure.
Okay, just really quickly, just to piggyback on what James was saying, it is so critically important what he was saying about what we call the informal education. There is so much that is not taught in college, and there are so many people that don't go to college. And right now, the pandemic is a perfect time to work on your informal education. It's in the library, and the library is simply logging online. It's on Google, it's on whatever your search engine is. And if you are not an avid reader, one of my favorite magazines is Success Magazine, and most people have never heard of it before. Success Magazine is phenomenal if you don't want to sit down and read a book. But Rich Dad, Poor Dad, some of the books by Dr. Dennis Kimbrough. Hill Harper wrote a great book on wealth and money.
Absolutely.
There are so many great books out there that can get you started.
Michelle Singletary has a good book.
Michelle Singletary has books. Glenda Bridgeforth has books. There are great books out there, but if you don't want to sit down and delve into a whole book, start with a magazine, Money Magazine, Kiplinger's Personal Finance Magazine, Black Enterprise, Success Magazine, and read articles until you get yourself up to reading a book. Here's one thing that Michelle keyed in, and I'm just going to add on to the GOAT, Michael Jordan, greatest of all times, Tiger Woods. Okay, all these folks, what do they have in common? They had a coach.
That's right.
We well, not we, but just when I say we, I'm not talking about a race. People in the middle class don't want to pay for support, coaching, and guidance on areas that they need support in.
Yeah.
Michael Jordan quit the NBA because he was only going to play for one coach.
That's right.
That man had a coach. Kobe had a coach. All of these GOATs had coaches, and we won't go out and pay $300, $400, $500, let alone thousands of dollars. I've sat here and invested thousands. Michelle, you've invested. Sis Lena has invested. We've invested in ourselves with coaches to cut our learning curve. I'm not saying go there right out the box, but start investing because your job pays the bills. Your informal education that allows you to retire. Your hustle and your informal education allows you to retire.
I'll just give a personal testimony. I have a financial advisor coach, and a month before you heard about the Moderna vaccine, a month before that came out, he had me buy that.
I did too.
And I didn't know. I was like, I kind of know what that is. Isn't they have creams? He said they're working on a vaccine, and then it came out 95% effective rate or 94%.
Yeah.
And the stock shot up.
Sure did.
I wouldn't have bought that.
No.
I wouldn't have even known to buy it, really, if it hadn't been for my financial coach. And
That's right.
it paid dividends. So
Yes.
it paid more than his fee, and it was well worth it. So Jennifer's point is exactly right. And by the way, Jennifer has written a couple of books on financial management, and she's a chief financial officer. So just to give you a little bit about her background, she's very knowledgeable.
I mean,
And
Sis
we're
Lena
glad to
and I
have
flew
her.
to Florida. Sis Lena and I flew to Florida together and invested in a coach. We paid the money to go to Florida to pay for a weekend coaching, and then paid for what was that? I think it was a 6-month coaching program that we paid for after we got to Florida.
It's worth it. It's worth it.
Yeah,
Better
it is.
investment than a car, than a luxury car.
That's
So
right.
listen, I'm going to ask, do we have any more questions? Because we can move into our next topic unless we have some more questions.
We never
Unless
answered
James,
that.
you want to say
We
something?
never answered the.
We
no,
never answered the question.
We never answered the question.
Got it.
I never answered the question. So ultimately speaking to that, one of the things that I advise my clients on is doing both at the same time, because you cannot get time back. So I show clients how to have a debt structure program where I can show you how to literally eliminate the debt and invest at the same time. The reason why most people, they'll say, well, you shouldn't, have debt and all this type of stuff. The reason why I say do not take all your money and just dump it into debt is because of the fact that, the thing is, if you take your savings or whatever, you'll find yourself getting back in debt because you don't have anything saved up. So, that's one of the biggest reasons people get in debt, because they extend their buying power on a credit card. Like right now, people are extending their buying power on credit card. Okay, I don't have income, so let me charge my gas, let me charge my food, you can even charge your rent. And so you get back in that. So I show people how to have a total solution of paying on your debt and still investing your money at the same time. Okay. And the other thing I want to speak to that too is that when you first get started, you don't have to jump out there and start to pay for a big time advisor where you're charging fees. There are plenty of, like, I don't charge a fee. I do work off of commission, but I don't charge a fee for the analysis and things like that. So that's one of the biggest things that people think too, that you have to have all this money before you can sit with an advisor. And that's not the case. It doesn't matter what you have. It's a matter of what you keep and what do you want your mindset. I tell people, doesn't matter where you are in life. You can be in the projects, you can be on the waterfront. I want your mindset, because wealth is a mindset. Rich is a state of being. Rich, just because you go into the NBA does not mean you're wealthy. You're just rich, right? But like LeBron, he changed his mindset because he started to hang with a person that had wealth, not just rich, right? Poor is a state of being, right? Poor is I don't have the money right now, but poverty is a mindset. You understand what I'm saying? If impoverished mindsets say I don't have it, I'm not going to keep, I'm living for the day, all those type things. So it's really huge when we talk about the mindset when it comes to your money. Okay. So I hope that answered your question and with that.
That's great. Do we have any more questions, Chandra?
One of the questions is, what are some things to look out for when selecting a coach? And Jennifer Barton says yes to James for answering that question. So a question that was asked, just asked in chat box is, what are some things to look out for when selecting a coach?
I would say literally when you go and sit down with a person, if they immediately just start telling you, what they want to do with your money and all this type of stuff, run, because all they're looking for is your money. They're not looking at what you want. You want somebody that's going to listen to you, that's going to hear you out, that wants to know about your goals, your dreams. What are you looking to do? Short term, mid-term, long term. You want somebody that's going to first and foremost care about you. The second thing is looking for someone that is knowledgeable, that's gonna educate you. Again, that's one of the biggest things that, when I got before I got into this field, I just was giving my money to somebody because I thought because they worked at a certain place. Okay. And so, but they weren't looking out for me and my wife. Okay. And so those are things where just because you have the money, you can still be taken advantage of. So I always say, again, don't just go and somebody say, okay, well, this was going to be, and they just jump right in. Like, how much you make? Okay. How much you have here? What do you have in this account? Well, you haven't even, let's talk first. So those are big things that I always say to look out for. And the knowledge, you know what I'm saying? And it's a gut feeling. You really have to have the discernment, you know what I mean? To just know, oh, okay, I feel comfortable here. And then referrals, I work off 100% referrals. Like my clients love me and they send me to their friends and family. So, ask around, hey, who's your money person? Who do you talk to? You know what I mean? And so, that's key too. So that's what I was saying.
Because they really should ask you, what your goals are and your
Right.
time frames and how much, are you risk averse? There's a whole litany of questions that they should be asking you, and not, to your point, James, just jumping in, telling you what you should do, and they don't even know what your goals are. So if they're not asking those questions, that's a problem. Okay, so we're going to, in the interest of time, because we want to get to the different topics and we're a little behind. So the next topic that we're going to talk about is the topic of saving me from myself. And again, that's just another piece of the mindset discussion. There's on the right, or on the left rather, there's some tips around structuring your financial habits. But can you the team, James and Cislina and Jennifer, could you just unpack that again, what it means to save you from yourself?
I think that when I think about saving me from myself, that is, and I'm going to harken back to a couple of things that were already said, in terms of where might you start. Everybody on this call, if you are working, should participate in a 403B or your 401k without even thinking about it. Max that out if you can. And I know that the timing and the climate may be tough, but a commitment device is sort of a forced savings so that you don't have to think about it, because once that 10% or that 15% or that 5% or whatever it is that you can afford comes out of your check before you even see it, you won't even miss it. And so when I'm talking to young folks, or when I'm talking to people about how do I, they say, what do I do? How do I get started? Almost the first question I ask is, if you're working, are you participating in forced savings, which is what I called 403Bs or 401Ks? And sometimes they'll say no, or what is that? Or, yeah, I'm not sure if I can afford it. And I will say, start slow. Start with 2%, then bump it up to 4%, and then bump it up to 6%. And do it in ways that feel like that you won't even miss it.
Right.
And so that's an amazing way to save your money, and not even with a commitment vice, and not even miss it. So I'll tell you, I started saving just when I was an intern in graduate school.
There you go.
And at 24 years old, I was looking to buy my first house.
Yep.
Bought my first house at 26.
Yep.
And my father always said, never buy a car until you have somewhere to park it. So I was buying a little raggedy Toyota Tercel, all kind of parts falling off. I used to change my own oil, and had a house to park it before I bought a real car, because this was sort of the family hand-me-down.
Right.
And then by 34, I had 11 investment houses, just little by little, because it was a mindset, you guys. Literally, when James was talking about poverty being a mindset, it is most clear when you look at how 90+% of lottery winners end up flat broke within 2 years of their winnings.
That's right.
It's because their mindset is not prepared for their windfall.
Mm-hmm.
And if your mindset is not prepared for your windfall, you can make $150,000 and be broke as a joke.
That's right.
Because it's not about what you make. It's about what you keep.
All day.
It's about what you keep. It's about what you save. And so the commitment devices are like no judgment, right? It's no judgment if you're in debt. What you can do today is you can shift on a dime and you can start saving. Our grandmothers used to have Christmas clubs, right?
Yes.
Right.
If you're old enough to have a grandmother who had a Christmas club with a passbook savings account,
Oh yeah.
every week, right? We about to go to church. Every week, she would go to the bank and she would say, I'm gonna put $10 away. I'm gonna put $10 away. And so if all you can do right now is go to your HR department and say, show me how I can just squirrel away an additional $10 a week or $10 a month. Don't be ashamed to do that, because what's gonna happen is at the end of the year, you're gonna look around and you're gonna have some money.
Right.
And even if it's not your HR, if it's a financial planner, a financial advisor, what they're going to do is their job is to stretch you. Is to stretch you just enough so that you can eat.
That's right.
But that you're uncomfortable, so that you are putting money away, because if it's not in your account, you can't buy those red bottoms that you can't afford.
Right.
True.
Right.
True.
And so I'll just read through those financial habits, and then I'll toss the ball. Spend less than you earn, right? That sounds really easy, but it's not. And one way to do that is to force savings. Take the money out of your account before it hits your account, right? You can have a separate account that Jennifer talks about. Have a draft right out, right?
Yep.
Only borrow what you can afford. Do you know that credit cards started with Diners Club in the 1950s? We now use plastic like we've always had it. But our grandparents didn't have plastic, right? My grandfather was the town loan shark, and I was the college loan shark. I must run in our blood. So only borrow what you can afford.
That's right.
Grow your money. Grow your money, guys. So I was talking about 401k. I'm talking about financial planners, but you can participate in the gig economy. There are all kinds of things you can do to grow your money. And then I would talk about, Michelle talked about Warren Buffett. My son, Malachi, started dog walking at, I think he was 12 years old. He was getting $5 a walk, right? Per day. And so that was $10 a day, because he walked the dog at 7 in the morning and he walked him again at 3 o'clock for this woman who was in the neighborhood. During that walk, I played Snowball, which is Warren Buffett's autobiography. So I played Snowball. And do you know that right now we're working on him buying his first house. He's 18.
Awesome.
Love it.
Because I planted those seeds early. And so now he's bought 2 cars. We're in Washington State. He bought 2 cars and he's like, I think I'm going to get my dealer's license because he wants to sell them. Bought them
There
for
you go.
Love it.
$300, fixed it
Yeah.
up, replaced stuff, because that's the mentality. So now I know that if I were to die today, he would be okay financially, right?
Yeah.
And so you do that for your children. Boost your earning capacity. I was talking about the gig economy. Get in the gig economy. What is it that you know that somebody else would pay for? And I can
Yes.
say, I can make a declarative statement and say that on this call, everyone has
That's right.
something that
That's right.
somebody else would pay for.
Yep.
I've bought substandard courses for $50, $60, $70, $80, $90, $119 that, you know, that I could get through in 20 minutes online or 30 minutes online, but I paid for them because they were able to share something with me. I want to take up guitar during the pandemic, and I'm going to pay somebody to teach me that online. What do
Right.
you know that somebody would pay for? And then protect what you have, right? And that has to do with tax, you know, probably deeper than I can go with you, but tax shelters and making sure that you have the proper insurance. If you're going to invest in real estate, protect what you have so that you don't turn around and end up losing it. And then I want to just drop the 4 books that I think that are fundamental to your education. You've already heard about The Richest Man in Babylon. I just gave one away. You've already heard about Rich Dad, Poor Dad, but The Richest Man in Babylon, quick read,
Yes.
really
Yes.
easy,
Yeah.
an
Yeah.
amazing first book, right?
Yes.
The Latte Factor, really good book. Think and Grow Rich
Mm-hmm.
by
Huge.
Napoleon Hill,
Napoleon Hill.
Yeah.
fundamental. And then I would say Snowball. It's a little heavier, rich, a little heavier read, but an amazing book. So I will
Mhm.
stop there.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I would
Fantastic.
jump in on those books. I would add also The Wealth Choice by Dennis Kimbro, which is an amazing book. But those books that you gave are awesome too. You know what I'm saying? Like I've read those, especially The Rich Man in Babylon. That book, woo! Oh my goodness, it is amazing.
It'll
And
save your
so,
life, won't it?
it will. I'm
Those
telling you,
principles.
I'm
I mean,
telling you, those principles alone, like I said, and it's biblical. So I'm big on that. Like I tell people, and I
Yes.
don't want to go off top, but I'm telling you, one of the biggest things that I tell people when I speak at churches, I do seminars called the Other 90%, stewardship seminars for churches. And one of the biggest things that I tell people is that they take the F out of finances, which is the faith. They take the faith out of their money.
Yeah.
You cannot do that. When you talked about growing your money, I'm gonna stay on what you were talking about. Just to elaborate. That's one of the biggest things where people don't realize. In order to grow your money, you've got to have faith. You've got to take that. You've got to plant the seed, right?
That's right.
You understand what I'm saying? Somebody else is going to water it. The increase is coming from God. I'm just telling you that. That's just how it works. You understand what I'm saying? Don't think about it. Just plant the seed. Watch it grow. You don't plant an apple tree and then go try to eat the fruit tomorrow. It takes time.
right.
So grow your money. You understand what I'm saying? When you talk about protecting what you have, that's the foundation of everything, right? One of the biggest things that I tell people is you've got to make sure that your income is protected. So that's one of the biggest things that I talk about. If you were to die today, is your family going to be okay, right? People call it life insurance. I call it income protection. $15,000 is just going to put you in the ground. $20,000 is just going to put you in the ground. You've got to now make sure that your family can go on. They're used to 100,000, 50,000, whatever your income is coming in. You got to make sure your family still has that so that the plan can still happen. And then when you talk about protecting yourself down in the future, when you talk about now that you have the money accumulated, you want to make sure that you have protection on that. I call it retirement protection. You know what I'm saying? Making sure that your assets are protected, because there are so many vehicles that are out there, and I don't want to go super deep, but there are so many things that have changed over time where you can have your money protected. You understand what I'm saying? Where you won't outlive your money. You understand? And you can pass on that wealth, right? So there are things that are out there that literally sitting down with somebody like myself that can show you how to make sure you don't outlive your money, right? You talk about boosting your earning capacity. That is something that is huge. You got to find something that, like you said, I always say, find something you're passionate about. What did you want to be when you grew up? That the job just took all your energy from. Start to go back to that. Go back to your passion. You know, this is my passion. I went to school for computers because I'm a money motivated person. But when I learned that I could teach people about something that we didn't know and I wasn't taught, I got passionate about this thing. Literally, if they said I couldn't get paid to do this, I'm still going to go teach people about money because it changed my family's future. You understand what I'm saying? The rules of the money game changed my family's future for the greater. When you talk about only borrow what you can afford, that is huge. And the thing is when we look at debt, right? When you talk about going out here and getting one of the biggest things is student loans. That when I sit with people that have come out of college, especially young people, that's one of the biggest things that kids will graduate with, that hefty debt on their shoulders. And I'm not. And college isn't for everybody. So one of the things that I would say for everyone that's on here, if you have children, don't pressure them to go to college. A lot of times, kids go to college because that's all they hear all the time. I go to college, go to college, go to college, but they may have a trade that they love. They may be good with their hands, a mechanic, plumber, electrician. I have electricians that are my clients that make, close to $200,000 a year in that trade field. So but you can go to college. That don't mean that you coming out making six figures. You only make $30,000-$40,000 a year. So the degree doesn't guarantee the big income. So, you know what I mean? So don't always put that on the children to go out here and, get in a student loan debt. Now, if you are teaching them about school, save the money, make sure that you're putting away money for their children's future self. When you talk about save for future spending, let's make sure you're preparing for your children's future, and make sure you're putting away money. And because she talked about 401ks and things like that, also look at IRAs. You can individual retirement accounts. That's money outside of your job, right? That's money that you can control. The money that you put in your 401k and 403b, that's what your job does and things like that. So you really don't have the control. If you want to do it, you always want to do that, right? But there's also ways you can have money outside of that as well to invest and save. And so, and the biggest thing, like she said, my father taught me that a long time ago: spend less than you earn, because it's not what you make, it's what you keep. That is hands down the biggest thing. When we talk about money today, most people will spend everything that they have and then save what's left over, right? Put your money on automatic, on like she said, like you can set up what's called a pre-authorized contribution. So like with me and my wife, our money comes out on the 28th every month. Like we have a separate account that all of our money comes out, and we started that years ago, right? So it's like I tell people all the time, it's like the Showtime grill. Set it and forget it, and watch your wealth just grow, because wealth is time and consistency. It is not get rich quick. So many people want to microwave wealth. You can't do that. It's crock potting. You understand what I'm saying? Let that thing simmer, let it grow. And when you look up, I always say, take care of money now, and one day money will take care of you. So,
and sometimes you have to, as you're saying, I mean, you have to know yourself.
That's right.
And if you have access to money and you're going to spend it, then limit that. Don't go to the ATM. Don't keep a lot of money in your purse or your pocket, and move the money. If you need to move it so it's not right in that account, then move it. Just as you said, James, you have to do that. Listen, while we're on this, do we have any questions?
Yeah, we have a couple of comments. So we definitely got some input from our audience. So thank you, everyone. We have some additional book resources to be added to the list. There is The Power of Zero by David McKnight. We have The Millionaire Next Door by Tom Stanley.
Excellent.
We have also the book, You Are a Winner, Making Positive Changes in Your Life Using the Power of Thoughts and Words by Mark Tabron. So we thank you for those book selections and to expand our reading capacity over the break. We definitely going to make sure that everyone receives the panelist information at the end of the webinar. So we definitely want to make sure that people will be able to stay connected. But we do have one question as we're talking about this topic of saving ourselves from ourselves. And the question was, and this may be towards, James, what are the differences between the three primary classes of trust in terms of trying to protect what you have?
So when you talk about the trust fund accounts and things like that?
What did it? The question was, what are the differences between the three primary classes of trust, considering protecting what you have? Yes. Gotcha.
So the thing is that I don't do trust, so I don't want to speak on something that I don't know. But I do have a partner that they speak on, but what I do know from trust, I don't do them. But the one thing about a trust is that a trust you can literally it gives you like ultimate control of your money, even like after you pass. Like when you pass away, like you can control your money from the ground. You know what I'm saying? From the cemetery with a trust, which my lawyer was telling me about. So that's the one thing. But definitely seek out You know what I'm saying? The different type, I know there's like the irrevocable trust, and then there's another one that's out there, but really not familiar with the trust like that. So if somebody else knows, I saw Jennifer come off mute. If she can speak
I
on it or
came
know
off the
anything about it.
mute. That is a phenomenal question. And on Saturday, March the 6th, when we have our financial expo, our goal is to have a speaker dealing with estates, wills, and trusts. So look for that. Mark your calendar for Saturday, March the 6th. And we plan to have an estate attorney.
That
So
is so
thank you.
important. I'm really
Yeah.
looking forward to that. That estate piece
Mhm.
is critical, because for as much work as you do in terms of saving your money, if you don't have your affairs in order, it
Yeah.
can be a nightmare. I have a trust actually, but there's a lot of different types of trust. So you really want to get some professional experience with that. So with that said, we're going to move into our final topic, which is save consciously and live wisely. And we've really talked about a lot of this already. But what are some things that people can do just day to day? I mean, you've given some great tips about moving your money and investing in the 401k. But what are some things that people can do every day? I think, Cicely, you mentioned the book, or someone mentioned the book about the latte effect. And I remember when I first heard about that concept, for those of you who don't know, they kind of likened spending a bit to people who go to Starbucks every day and buy coffee. And they would just buy their coffee every day. And they didn't realize that at the end of the year, they had spent over $3,000 buying cups of coffee, when they just could have bought some Starbucks coffee and made it at home.
Right.
That's $3,000 or $4,000 that could have been in their bank account.
That's
So,
right.
but there was something that they were doing habitually. And a lot of people still do that. There might be a Starbucks at the end of the street. They walk and get it. But what are some things that you can do that maybe within what you enjoy doing? Because you talked a little bit about I want to live for today. So how do you live for today, but at the same time, live for today wisely? So you're still saving and you're still doing some things you want to do.
Yeah, so I think it's really about trying to have harmony in the way you live, right? And so there's all this research on whether or not you can ever achieve balance and what that means, and that you're always off balance because sometimes you're focusing on this and sometimes you're focusing on that. But the bottom line is it's really about establishing harmony in your work life, in your spending patterns, it's not an all or none. No one would ever say you should never go to Starbucks again, which is sort of where Susie Orman, I think she's kind of lightened up a little bit, but she used to be like, she would yell at people. I went to see her live at an event and she kind of tempered it down. But at one point she was just like, do you know how much you're spending with that $2.85 coffee? And it was just like through the roof. But the bottom line is that it's more about the awareness of what you're doing and that you're not unconsciously spending. And so one strategy that, and I've actually did this because I was going to church in DC at the time, and my pastor had this series called Stop and Grow Rich, and quite original, right? And it's essentially for the month, he says, get an envelope and just spend cash and track that. And what happens is because our transactions on cards have become, even the ATM card has become so mindless, we forget it doesn't feel real. It is harder. It is actually harder to spend $5 cash than it is to swipe it.
Very true.
And so one way to think about it, it really gets into your head when you take time and go, oh, wow, this whole $5 for a coffee, this whole $5, as opposed to swiping it and not having to think about it. That'll sober you up real fast.
Real quick.
And so you're right. So that's sort of 1 and 2, getting clarity. If you want to kind of say, well, I'm going to give myself, I don't know about budget because people hate budgets, but if I want to track my spending for this month and maybe give myself $200, you will
Mhm.
see how quickly that $200 go if you're actually spending in cash versus how it will go within the first 2 or 3 days if you were swiping.
Mhm.
And
Very
so
interesting.
then, right? Yeah. So there's
Yeah.
so much research behind that. And so I think that as you think about that, that is certainly the latte effect. And I'm going to
Right.
toss to James the
Yeah,
last two.
I wanted to jump in on what you were saying with that, because
Yeah.
that's very true. But the thing that people have to understand, because you were like, nobody wants to budget. But when we talk about change, you understand it's the pain of change or the pain of regret, right?
Yes.
It's like
Yes.
it's like your health. Nobody wants to go to the gym. Nobody's like, oh, I gotta go get this workout. Nobody wants to say, hey, I gotta eat right. But you got to. Like if you don't, you're gonna shorten your lifespan. You understand what I'm saying? So if you want to change, there are things that you got to do. It's going to be the pain of change. But
Yes.
one thing I tell people is that it's about being a little bit uncomfortable now to be comfortable later. You understand
Right.
what I'm saying?
Yes.
Because
I
when
love
you go in Walmart right now, when you see these people that are elderly that are working there, it's not because they want something to do. It's because they don't have enough money coming in. You
Right.
understand? It's because somebody didn't tell them how to plan and do those type things. And I'm not saying that or take anything from them, but that's a reality. You understand what I'm saying? Nobody wants to be standing up checking receipts at 10 o'clock at night. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I gotta
Yeah.
do what I gotta do. So do you want to, the pain of change or the pain of regret? Man, I wish I would have, put a little bit more money away. When you talk about,
Yeah.
I call it, the envelope theory, because it is hard to, when you take that cash and you
Oh.
extend that $5 or that $10, you like, do I really want to? But you can swipe a card all
It's
day. And I tell people,
sobering.
when I
Yeah.
sit down with people that are card conscious, I say, look, we going envelope theory. We going, this is what you're spending. This is what you have. We're going to put in each envelope, and you cannot go from entertainment to gas and gas to, eat. You cannot exchange them. You got to live
Right.
off it. We do that for the first couple months, and they're like, man, thank you so much. And they see how much they save, because it's like, especially the entertainment, well, I really don't have to spend this to go out to grab that drink, or, go out to eat. And, what I mean? So all those type things of the gaining the clarity of that budget to really see what's going out, what's coming in, and minimize those variable expenses, right? You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
absolutely.
That's something that's huge. Like you were talking
Absolutely.
about with the latte factor. Go out and buy
Yeah.
a nice
No.
Keurig machine, or
No, I
spend the
agree.
money. Yeah.
I
Buy a
agree.
nice
And I think
Keurig, or go ahead.
and I think that the budget piece is really about if you are not that person who is going to sit down every month and do it, if you do it one time and you use those commitment devices, you're
Yep.
one and done.
There it is.
You're one and done. Because I'm
Exactly.
not that, I'm one, you know what I mean? It's sort of like there's room for all. I'm not the person who's going to budget every month. I'm just not.
Right.
But
Right.
I am the person who's going to make sure that the money doesn't hit my account.
Exactly.
That's it.
It ain't going to hit my
That's
account.
right.
Now, if it
That's
hits
it.
my account, it's officially, it's game.
That's right. That's
But
right.
mostly I won't see it because I've
Right.
already done it once. And so it's really
Exactly.
sort of a one and done. And then when I'm going to move to the next bullet, which is distill the
Yeah,
experience,
and
determine
Selena,
what is essential, what is
Sis-
essential.
Selena,
Oh, yeah.
I just wanted to jump in real quick. I don't really use the word budgeting. I teach about spending plans, because people are allergic to budgets. A spending plan is a plan for how you spend your money. And the more you plan how to spend your money, the more money that you have. And we're experts at planning. We plan birthdays, we plan how to, we plan everything we're going to do. We plan vacations before COVID. We planned all this. Well, now we got to plan how to go to the store with the mask and the gloves and the sanitizer. And we're still planning, even in COVID, we're planning. But we don't plan that paycheck that comes in every other week that sustains us. So I teach spending plans, and it goes over, it gets swallowed a little bit easier than the budget, because I don't know, conceptually, it just goes over a lot easier. And the thing with the latte factor is, once you see that money, David Bach, the latte factor, he's big on automatic. And when you, James, were talking about how you automatically have that money moved on the 28th, I teach that as well.
Yep.
Every payday, you automatically move money into a online bank account. with no debit card,
Yep.
even if it's just $10. I got a lot of Greeks on the line. I'm on Facebook Live. I got Divine. I got about Divine 4 or 5. I don't know if I have all 9, but it's not expensive to be Greek. You have a Greek account. I have a Delta Sigma Theta account. Every time I get paid, money automatically goes to the Delta account. So when it's time for dues and tickets and conferences and conventions, it is not in my budget. It is in the bank. Delta
That's
is not
good.
in my budget. It's in the
That's good.
bank.
Right.
That's good right there.
That's
My
really,
favorite
yep.
account, I love Delta, but my favorite account is the one for the house cleaner to come in every other month and get the corners. I love to support that small business over all other small businesses. That account beats Delta because
That's right.
that's my treat to me.
Right.
And when you have an online account with no debit card, you can do that and the money grows and it happens automatic. David Bach
Right.
is big on the automatic, and that's part of the latte factor.
Yep.
Automatically trading in half of those lattes and putting that money on savings automatically. So there, you can go on. I'm sorry.
That's great. That's great information. And it's true.
Yeah, absolutely.
Very true.
Yep. And so I'm just going to extend your point on half the lattes and say again, sort of reiterate the point about awareness of what you're actually spending and kind of refer to that harm reduction model in public health. We talk about harm reduction. So if something everyone can relate to, when you start thinking about smoking, right? If you are a smoker, the harm reduction model might say, you don't have to quit today, but can you smoke half the cigarettes, right? So it may not be that you all of a sudden stop going to Starbucks altogether, but could you go once a week instead of 5 days a week? So
Right.
what can you do? Everybody can do something. And so when, on this call, think about one thing that you can do, whether it's, investing in that financial planner, or for that one visit, or whether it's I'm going to go and start participating in a 401k, 403p, or an IRA, or I'm going to start squirreling away $10 a week, that you can do something. And so as a takeaway from the call, think about one thing that you might be able to do, and you will be winning, because
That's right.
the journey of 1,000 miles begins with what? One step, right?
That's right.
And so in terms of tracking the new normal, this is a great time to do it, because all of us are in a swirl.
That's right.
Right? We are all in a swirl. And so this is a great time to start a new habit, to do something new, to put out there the skill set, get into the gig economy, do something, challenge yourself to do something that maybe you didn't think about doing in the past. And so as you think about where you are right now, what can you do? And so I'm gonna pause there and pivot.
Yeah.
And what is the gig economy? So the gig economy is that everybody has a gig. So remember when we were talking a little earlier about figuring out, like, there are people who teach guitar, and I said, I want to learn how to play guitar. There are online courses on how to play guitar. This person is selling their skill set. They're gigging, right? It sort of comes off out of the music industry. They're gigging. And if, let's say, the Deltas were selling this, they would be gigging, right? So any way you can get in and get your hustle on and get a few dollars. I have coaching clients, and I'm in the gig, but I've always been in the gig economy because I've been coaching for a long time, but it's, it's being able to sell your services, right? This is a great time to jump into this big experiment called the 100-year pandemic and figure out who's buying what you're selling, because somebody's buying it, right?
That's right.
And so that's what the gig economy is.
Yeah. That's good. That's good. I like that. You either buying or selling anyway. That's what I tell people all the time. You either buying or selling,
That's
When you
right.
talked about distilling the experience, one of the things that we look at, especially when it talking about saving, consciously living wisely, is not having the when you go out shop, don't splurge, like buying on impulse. That's one of the biggest things that I tell people. Stop buying on impulse. Like if you went to the store, or to get let's say a pair of pants or whatever. Like, don't go and get, okay, I need a shirt and this, and I need this. Like, literally, you have to plan out your shopping sprees, or what I'm saying, like with our son. I remember when Beats headphones came out. One of the things that me and my wife do with our kids is that we don't just buy right away. You know what I mean? We're like,
Right.
they've got to ask for a while. I don't think we bought the Beats for about a year, you know what I'm saying, to see how serious he really wanted them. Because of course kids want stuff when everybody's got it, but when it dies out, are you still gonna ask about it? How bad do you want it? And one of the other things that we talk about is, like when you think about planning it out, okay, if I am gonna buy it, okay, can I find it on sale? Can I find a coupon? Like, these are all the things of, kind of the delayed gratification.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? When we talk about saving consciously, it's basically being aware of your money. It's you know what I'm saying? And like she was like Jennifer was saying, like when she's talking about the spending chart or spending, you know what I'm saying? Basically telling your money where you want it to go. You know what I mean? That's literally what it is. Telling your money where you want it to go, and tracking the new normal. The next best thing starts now. Like right now where you are, everything that you did before this Zoom is out of the window, right? Forgive yourself. It was then, you didn't know it, but now make a decision, like Selena said, to change, right? To say, okay, I'm going to take this first step, whether it be $25, whether it be $50, whatever it is, start to save. You understand what I'm saying? Start to track. Because if you're not conscious about it, see, one of the biggest things, because you got to go back to mindset. One of the biggest things that I tell people all the time is that your unconscious mindset is what's messing you up. Your unconscious mindset of what's going on behind the scenes is messing you up, because of the fact that most people go around, and I always say life and death lie in the tongue, and they'll say, I'm broke, right? When you say that, now when you have money, when money comes to you, your subconscious says, it literally says, hey, why do you have money? You're broke. Spend the money, right? Because you're going around saying, I'm broke. Stop saying I'm broke. That's one of the biggest things. Say, I don't have it right now, right? You know what I'm saying? I don't have that right now to spend. I don't have that right now to spend, right? There's certain things that what you speak over your life, it happens. You know what I mean? It's very true. So when we talk about that conscious lifestyle, look at what you have. You know what I'm saying? Understand that, hey, I'm planning for my future. I want to plan for my future. And our mindset, I know when when me and my wife, when we learned the rule of 72, which is one of the biggest things that I teach my clients, I teach children this. That was the rule that changed my life. And you all can Google it, look it up. But the rule of 72 tells you how long it takes your money to double based on the interest rate you're getting. When we learned that rule, me and my wife just got infatuated about investing and saving money, because we realized that we were blowing so much money on entertainment and things that we just did not need to blow money on. And so we started to invest that money. I mean, she literally stopped getting her nails done for a while. We switched our cell phone plans. We cut off cable. I mean, we just did a lot of things that really, it was not something that needed to be done at that time, because we said, hey, we want to be done. We got a plan. Like, let's go, let's get after it. So it's really being conscious and woke about where your money's going when it's coming in. So that's
isn't it so satisfying when you start hitting those goals, and when it doesn't, when you realize, gee, I just put away an extra $25 and it just adds up. Or I remember just a personal testimony when I was thinking about looking at a promotion at work, and it was going to pay maybe about $10,000 more a year. And I thought, I'm going to go for that promotion. But then I started really paying attention to my investments. And I realized that I had made that the prior month with the investments that I had. And so I was thinking, so why would I take on extra responsibility when I was sitting here and my investments were just working for me? So then you start to think about, well, I don't need that promotion. I think I'll just stay put and just continue saving my money and investing, because why do I need to, so you just start to think about, when your money is working for you, it gives you options.
That's right.
Right?
Yes, it does.
Because we're kind of, taught to think, well, always, seek moving up, whether you're in your company or whatever it is. But for me, I realized the best thing I could do was really stay put and have flexibility,
That's
because
right.
then I could have a little side gig.
That's
That's
right.
it.
Mhm.
I could
That's
keep
it.
That's right.
saving it. And, you know, so because if you're going to get a promotion and spend everything,
That's right.
right?
Right.
You
Yeah,
said
like
something
So,
that was key with that money giving you options. It's just like Miss Jennifer said. She pays somebody to clean her house. So that's time that
absolutely.
she don't, that's time. Money buys you time. You
Right.
understand that? Money buys you time because I know growing up, my parents, we didn't fly. I have sisters that live in Florida. So we always took the car ride to Daytona Beach, Florida, 15-hour car ride, because I never flew. I didn't fly until I was in college, right? And when I flew for the first time and realized you could get from Maryland to Florida in 2 hours, I called my dad and I said, Dad, you made us ride in the car for 15 hours. We could have jumped on a plane. I said, that's time that you get back. Jennifer doesn't have to clean her house. So that's an hour or 2 hours that she has to go do what she want to do. She can go
Right.
shopping, right? You know what I'm saying? If you have somebody to pay you to cut your grass, that's time. You're getting time back when you have that money working for you. And you're blessing somebody else. You know what I'm saying? Somebody that,
Absolutely.
yeah,
Michelle, you said
somebody
So
else's
listen,
gig.
so critical. I don't want it to go over anybody's head. When you get a promotion or you get a raise, I don't care if it's a COLA, I don't care if it's 1%, 5%, 200%. Don't take it. Somebody taught me that in my 20s. When you get a raise, you have been living without that money.
yep,
You save it, invest it,
yep,
estimate what it is before it hits your paycheck. You get with your financial planner, financial advisor, you get with HR and your 401k, 403b, whatever it's called, and
increase
you
it.
estimate what it's going to be and you put that money away.
Absolutely.
Now, if you want to buy a
Very true.
house,
Very
you
true.
want to put it somewhere that you can take it out without a penalty. But you have been living without that money. The
That's right.
minute that money hits your paycheck, you're going to spend it.
That's right.
But if it's, I don't care if it's 1% that translates to a $2 increase after taxes,
That's right.
you put that $2 away.
That's right.
Michelle was saying she turned down $10,000. That's fine. But had she taken that $10,000, call up one of those investors that she's working with, investment professionals, and that $10,000 gets invested. It never hits her paycheck. And I'm going to tell you, I was dumb enough in my 20s, about 22, 23 years old, to follow that advice. And when I got laid off in 1990 and I got unemployment, I was dumbfounded. It was a $50 difference between my unemployment check and my paycheck because
Mm-hmm.
I was saving so much money.
Yep.
It was a $50 difference.
Yep.
Everybody else, my whole department got cut. Everybody else was scrambling. I had a $50 difference. And that was it. Because I
Wow.
had saved every raise I got. I had
Yep.
put it in my 401k,
Yep.
every raise I got. So every time you get a raise, you talk to your financial planner, financial advisor. And if you don't have one, you need one. And if your first thought is you can't afford one, then you need two.
Can't afford not to have one.
You need
So
more than one.
listen, we're gonna wrap up because I'm getting messages. We're almost at 8:30, and this has been so fantastic. I want to thank all of our panelists, Cislina, James, and Jennifer for jumping in. Really appreciate it. I'm gonna turn it over to Chandra. I know she's having some issues with her screen, so you won't be able to see her, but she is our committee, Economic Development Committee chairperson. And I want to turn it over to her to just say a few words before we close. I really appreciate everyone joining us tonight. And there's a lot of information in the chat. I know Chandra shared James's information as well. So Chandra, would you close us out for tonight?
Yeah, so once again,
And
I
there's a lot
echo.
of people on Facebook, Chandra.
Mhm. Yeah, so first of all, thank you to our moderator, Michelle for doing an awesome job just leading us in discussion. Thank you to all the panelists who shared a wealth of information. And I think Selena had mentioned it. I think James mentioned it. And I think Jennifer had mentioned it. Just taking action today and not stepping into 2021 with some of the things of the mindset, our behaviors that we had in 2020. And you know what? Starting tomorrow is actually like 21 days almost to like the new year. So we have this time to say, you know what? I'm going to be able to take one action step. What is that one thing that I'm going to do and begin to put into place to set me up on my financial journey to a financial and healthier me. And so with that, we want to thank everyone for coming out today. But guess what? This conversation does not end today. It doesn't stop right here, because although we're going on a small break for the holidays, you had the opportunity to hear her this evening, drop some wisdom nuggets, but our very own Jennifer Matthews is coming back and kicking off January, our January wealth building workshop on debt. How do we kick the debt? You know, how do we reduce it? And what are some strategies? So you want to make sure you're on our mailing list so we can add you to our newsletter so you can receive that information on how we're getting ready to kick out our debt. And then it was mentioned this evening, March 6th, save the date. We put a link into the chat box for a survey, but we're going to have a financial expo entitled with the theme, Destination Financial Freedom. Are you excited about that? These are just the stepping stones, building blocks to our financial freedom destination. So we thank you so much. We thank you those who are here, that you're inviting your friends. We thank you for those who are joining us through Facebook. And this is being recorded, so it will be uploaded to our YouTube channel, so you'll be able to hear this conversation again. You'll be able to hear the rich conversation. You'll be able to look into some of the books on building our financial health. I was taking notes, so I'm looking forward to reading some of these books over my holiday break. So once again, we just thank you everyone for coming out and joining us. We wish everyone a safe and healthy, prosperous holiday and a new year. And on behalf of North Arundel Alumni Chapter, on behalf of Dr. Sean Ashworth, the entire chapter, we thank you. I thank you to the Economic Development Committee, who continuously pour into our community over about financial health and economic and development. So thank you, everyone. Thank you for those who are visiting SARS from different chapters. We thank you so much for joining in, and to all of our guests. So thank you.
Thank you. Good night, everybody.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you.
All right.
It was awesome.
Good night. Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you.
Night.
Good night.
Good night.